The thought that Atkinson hasn't had a job, but like Doc gets a job everywhere will always amaze me. And there's people on Twitter that always come at me like, how could you say this about Doc? You know, he won a final. Yeah, of course. Yes. Good for him. Like, what has he done? That's the thing. Like, why should one piece of your career, you know, why should that define the entirety of your career? Like, I think it's fair to say, if you looked at Doc Rivers' career in its entirety, he's not only like an underwhelming coach, but probably not a good one.
Yeah, 100% agreed. It's funny, though, because I do see the other side of it, just in the sense that, like, getting to the top of that mountain, and while we'll make the case that he should have been there more times, is fucking hard. And most people never do it. And they're always looking at the people who have done it as like a guide to how to do it. Probably too much so. I also feel like with Doc Rivers, and I could be completely off here, people either love him or hate him. So while like clearly you're not a fan, I'm not a fan, and we hear a lot about people that just don't like him, I do think there's a nice segment, and clearly he keeps getting jobs of people that do really like him.
Get Doc Rivers to coach your favorite team, and that'll change. Guaranteed.
Totally
like
fair.
Trey said in chat, Doc Sucks signed a Clippers fan. You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you're a Clippers fan. You get it. Like I said this before the show started, Trey. I said it before the show started that like Doc should have won at least one finals with the Clippers. Absolutely should have won at least the finals. Should have gotten the Sixers past the second round at least once with some of the, you know, whatever. Doesn't matter. A said you could say the same thing about Kerr getting blessed. Probably. I remember when he went out for that extended period of time with, was it health issues or something? Also, though, the development of that team has been pretty remarkable, given that most of it was homegrown outside of KD. And they won one before him, right? Was it one or two that they won before KD? I can't remember. Two. Yeah. I mean, you had like Harrison Barnes as a glue guy, you know, yeah. But that year that they won all those games, I'm pretty sure Kerr missed a ton of the season. And then what's his name that took over for the Lakers?
Luke Walton.
Yeah. They won like every game under him too.
Do you think Kerr, like I definitely hold Kerr in much higher respect than Doc Rivers.
I'm not saying I don't. What I'm saying is that like, here's what I'm saying, because I hold Steve Kerr in high esteem. The guy outside of coaching basketball, I can't stand him, but that's besides the point. You know, people probably don't like me either. But what I'm saying is there are certain rosters that are so good that like you just need to kind of be there and not be a complete moron to have a good season.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I will give Kerr more credit than that for them winning at least the first two titles without KD. And then still, like, yeah, anyone coaching that team should have been able to do what, you know, should they have like 4 titles? I don't know. I get your point, though.
Anyway, happy to have you guys with us. It's MLB Live Before Lock. If you don't mind, take one single second out of our busy lives. I've done so already. Atone for your sins here. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Goes a long way for us. We appreciate you for it. And also, you ever want to listen to any of these shows that have shelf life, like when we're doing the strategy show, you want to listen in podcast form, we're out there. Any podcast platform, you name it, we've got you covered. But see, EB, there's a Doc Truther. There's your Doc Truther. Sports guy, were you the one saying Wolves sweep yesterday? Was that you? Or was that somebody else? Everyone's always moving the goalposts around here. But anyway, dude, we've got Wheeler, Luis Heel, and Paul Skeens on the mound today for a 6-game early slate. This is wild.
Luis Castillo,
you gotta stop with the mute. Why do you mute yourself? What are you doing over there? Like, what are you doing that you need to mute yourself every time I talk?
It's not you. It's definitely not you.
I don't think it's me. I'm saying.
We'll talk later. Also, Luis Castillo, didn't even mention him. He's in a really tough spot, but he certainly belongs on that list of pitchers.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, I mean, Luis Hill coming off a 14 strikeout game against the White Sox. Skeens coming off his second start. Both were against the Cubs, right? Second start, strikes out the first 7 batters he faces. He's got that, they call it the splinker. What a ridiculous pitch, dude. Like this thing is
He's so
sitting,
good.
it's sitting 95. A splitter sinker hybrid sitting 95. What? Like they said, Soriano for the Angels, the only one that has anything similar to that. But they're like, the movement and everything resembles Zach Wheeler's splitter, which is, widely considered one of the best splitters in baseball. But the difference is Wheeler's splitter sits at 85. And this splitter sinker hybrid sits at 95 miles per hour. I mean, he is fun to watch, man. He is so fun to watch.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You don't say that too often about baseball players, but he fits that mold for sure. He was electric in that last start. Like that was must-see TV if you could get it on TV. The only thing I'll say, I don't know, did you see like the umpire report card after that game?
No.
The most missed calls, like missed balls that were called strikes in Major League Baseball all season for Skeens that day.
So you're saying he was fortunate?
Very, very fortunate.
Okay. But also he got a ton of swings and misses.
Listen, I don't say that to mean that like that's why he was so good.
I
think
what
it
you're saying, though.
just helped him a little bit,
I was looking, and you guys will probably think I'm crazy for this, but I don't really care much to go to live sporting events. I used to.
Same.
And now it just feels kind of burdensome, and I'd rather, watch on my TV and drink my own beer and grill on the Blackstone and make my own food. I can make some pretty good food, and I have no problem drinking my own beer. I don't make beer, but you get the point. So like sometimes it just feels burdensome. I'm not as close to the city as I used to be. But I did, however, look up to see if the Phillies played Pittsburgh at home again this year, which they don't, because like the joy to be able to maybe land a Suarez Skeens matchup would have been exhilarating. But
there you go again. You have to throw Suarez in there, but
I enjoy watching Suarez as much as Wheeler and more than Nola.
So just quick question on your sporting event take, because I'm totally with you. And I'm also, when I was younger, trying to go to as many games as I could. LeBron with the Cavs. The Browns are what they are, but the Indians growing up. But now it's just a burden. But over the summer, I still enjoy going to the occasional baseball game, no matter who's pitching, because you can go for like the second to sixth innings. You know what I mean? It's just so much more casual than the others.
Sure. Yeah. Give me like Sixers game if I'm sitting real close.
Yeah, sure.
Eagles games are fun. Plus the tailgates are great around here. But let's talk some baseball. Someone asked, can we touch on the Philly weather? And yeah, if you guys have questions, hit us up in chat. Happy to answer any of this. BD said, what up? Damn it, I'm late. You didn't miss a thing, brother. A little late, but we got 6 games. We're perfectly fine. So I don't think the weather is going to be all that problematic for Philly, honestly. I don't think so. If anything, I would think late start. Like we were supposed to get storms around here. We didn't get a thing. Got a little rain while I was walking the dog this morning, and that was it. Cleared up. Philly's obviously below me, but I don't think it's going to be all that bad. So I think we should be fine there. And then like Seattle and New York seems that it'll probably be okay. Maybe a late start. Like with the storms that were coming through the Northeast, Matt, to me at least, and I'm no meteorologist, as you guys know, everything looked like it was going to, like it was early and would clear, and there wasn't much risk of like in-game delays.
Yeah, so I think the worst case scenario on this slate is that we get one of these games that just starts way later than the others, but that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't like that, but it is what it is. When you have these day games, especially, like they've just got so much time, so much more time to get the game in, and no spot even looks bad anyway. So yeah, I'm not really seeing anything that would make me get off anyone, to be honest.
I'm going to go on the record now, of course, as a self-proclaimed not meteorologist, and say we're perfectly fine, save for a small delay. Everything looks fine. But man, how about the pitching today? How about the pitching? Like, you mentioned Castillo. It's funny how like Luis Castillo on a 6-game slate is the guy that I didn't mention. Not to say that we won't talk about him extensively, but I mean, you have Luis Hill against the Seattle Mariners They have 7 guys in their starting lineup today with K rates north of 25% against right-handed pitching. That's a lot. Okay. That's a lot. And by the way, most of them are sitting in like the 28 to 30 range. Zach Wheeler against Texas, not the best matchup, not the best park, but Wheeler's fantastic. And Texas offensively really has not been remarkable this season to begin with. Paul Skeens against San Francisco. This is more just a play on like, all right, well, Skeens is 9,500 and he's getting ownership. The Castillo's getting 25%. So right now you have you seen the disparity between you have 12 pitchers on this slate, Matt. We'll set it up this way. Get your thoughts just like on the overview here. There's a massive disparity between 6 pitchers and the other 6, where you have 6 of them getting 23% ownership or more, and then other 6 of them getting less than 10%. There's no middle ground here at all.
Doesn't really look like there's a middle ground for me either. I mean, you mentioned it at the top. The pitchers on this slate are very top heavy. Not even just like good pitchers up top, aces all over. Paul Skeens, just to touch on him real quick, you certainly don't feel as safe with him as the top guys because Wheeler's been doing it for so long, but clearly his upside is right there with the top guys. And I'm sure he'll get ownership. Like, I'm sure it'll bump up just because it's Paul Skeens and people want to play him. The 2 guys that I question, but we've seen this all week, are Joey Estes and Ryan Feltner. But I totally get why they're getting love and the guys a little bit above them aren't, because great ballpark, great matchups for both. And there are expensive bats on this slate. And with the top pitchers, you could poke holes in all of them. Wheeler's crazy expensive, and I don't like the spot. You know, going down the list, you can poke holes. So, yeah, I think the ownership disparity makes a ton of sense to me.
It does. And Clayton said Phillies have played only 3 games against teams that have a winning record. Matter of fact, Clayton, I'll take it a step further because I know what you're referring to. All of those games, all of those came in the first series of the season against the Atlanta Braves. So, yeah.
Do we care about this? Like, I saw that this morning too.
Doesn't mean
the Phillies are fucking good. I don't care who they played.
Dude, I mentioned that stat to you.
You did mention it last week.
Weeks ago. Yeah, a week ago. Like, you can see it right on MLB.com. It's like, we all know that. To your point, how much does it matter? Like, it really doesn't matter at all, at all. But yeah, it was that first series. And then it might've been against like the red. I don't know. Either way, they're a very good team. They've got good hitting. They've got great pitching. To me, it doesn't make much of a difference, but it is crazy that there's no denying they've had a very easy schedule thus far. But yeah, dude, Lewis Hill. All right. Do I just keep doing it? Do I just keep doing righties versus Seattle?
I don't know how you get off here. I mean, of all the guys we've talked about in the past couple weeks against Seattle, I'm not sure there's been one that's looked better than Luis Hill. I watched a lot of his last start against the White Sox, and yeah, it's the White Sox, but that was just as impressive after the first inning as Skeens against the Cubs last start. Mm-hmm. Certainly didn't get the notoriety, but after a rough first inning, he looked so good. He's in such a good strikeout spot here, and we know Seattle's offense isn't bad. They have upside, but even if he gets hit here, I have a hard time seeing him not get there just in terms of strikeouts. So, yeah, I think you have to like Hill here. I don't even think there's 2 ways to think about it.
I hear you. I mean, look, the walk rate is the concern because then it just bogs them down. They can't get deep into games. But the strikeout upside, I mentioned that Seattle highest K rate in the league versus righties. Not just that, there's 7 guys with 25+% strikeout rates on this team today. Like there's, and Zavala, is that how you pronounce his name? Zavala, Sebi Zavala?
Sebi, yeah.
He's only
awful.
had Yeah, he's only had like 21 plate appearances versus righties this year, but he's got like a 40-some% strikeout rate on those.
So you replace Mitch Garver, who's a competent hitter with power, with Sebi Zavala, who is not. And yeah, I mean, Heel just
Garver's
looks.
in. I think Rowley's
so
in.
Rowley.
Yeah,
oh, that's even
out.
better. So you get another righty in there.
Right. Like, I mean, you just take your chances, I guess you could say. Once you get past Louis Heel, though, Wheeler, Skeens, Castillo, do you have a preference there?
Real quick, I know what I was going to say on Heel right there. Yankees bullpen also a little bit taxed, which makes me like Heel even more because they're going to depend on him. A couple nights ago, they got to Clay Holmes and he blew a save. Then 2 nights later, Clark Schmidt, they got to the bullpen. Then last night, Cortez was very good, but he only went 5 innings. So just makes me like Heel that much more. Between Wheeler, Castillo, and Skeens, I think they all look so similar. Man, honestly, though, I didn't think this was going to be the case, but give me Luis Castillo, the cheapest, the least owned, and for my money, like, sure, Skeens has the as high as upside as anyone, but as far as how good they are as a major league pitcher, I still think Wheeler and Castillo are the top guys on the slate, and I'm really high on both Wheeler and Castillo. I don't think there's a huge difference between those two as far as talent-wise goes. Castillo's $2K cheaper and under-owned. Neither of them are good matchups. Sure, I'd rather face the Rangers than the Yankees right now, but the Rangers are also very good. Give me Castillo.
I kind of understand where you're coming from. I was thinking that you might go in that direction, and I do get it. You know, we've talked about this a lot on recent shows. Like when some of these guys are getting massive ownership, and it doesn't mean they shouldn't. Wheeler's incredible. It doesn't mean they shouldn't, but there are spots, and there have been often recently, where you're just getting a lot of high priced, really, really high owned guys that underperform. And that's not to say that they're going to underperform. Again, what I'm getting at is some of those other high priced guys in less appealing matchups, because you're like, well, how can I not play this guy in this spot? And then guys like Castillo, I'm not saying he goes overlooked, but 20% on a 6-game slate is pretty low. So I totally get where you're coming from. These have been spots that we've been able to exploit lately where they end up being, one of, if not the best pitchers on the slate. And the only reason they're not getting ownership is because they have a slightly less favorable matchup than their counterparts.
Yeah, like if Wheeler were facing the White Sox here, I would understand that ownership discrepancy considering the price. The price discrepancy also, like, that's the other thing about Wheeler. He's so much more expensive. So yeah, I do think he's probably safer here, but these guys are not 2K different as far as talent goes. So I'll take the lesser owned guy in the worst spot. Also, as I've talked about a lot, and Greg and I often chat about, when you see these ownerships in like single entry, 3-max type stuff, the Wheelers, Heels, and the 2 cheap guys, like the highest owned guys are going to see their ownership even higher. Guys like Castillo, maybe Joey Estes, don't come in as high owned as we're projecting. So also taking that into consideration.
So do you have Castillo behind Heel, but also above the other guys? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, I think Heel is the top guy for me. Like, the price is high, but he's so good and in the best spot for strikeouts. So yeah, I like playing both pitchers in that game.
You look at our top pitchers tool over at Stochastic, and Heel has a 31% top 2 pitcher probability. Wheeler's at 36%. So it's not, here's the thing I will point out about Wheeler. It's not very common for a guy to have 36% top 2 pitcher probability and positive leverage. You don't see that very often at all. Like, we still have Wheeler with slight positive leverage, which is one of the reasons that I keep coming back to him as like, you know what? Wheeler's owned, but should he act like, not only is he appropriately owned, maybe he should even be owned a little bit more than this. I'm running the Sims right now. We just got an update. Jake, I mentioned that to you in chat. we updated all those totals. We should be back in business. I'm guessing I get a lot of heel, but I think, and I could be wrong here, that Wheeler and Heel are my two highest owned, but we'll see. I don't know where I'm going to come in on. Go ahead.
No, I just want to jump in real quick because I'm wondering, as we're sitting here talking, why Wheeler has such a high top 2 pitcher percentage in a pretty tough spot. I'm thinking to myself, one hitter doesn't usually change that much, but is Corey Seager or something out for Texas today? And yeah, Corey Seager's out for Texas. By far their best bat from the left side, from any side. It just makes Wheeler look that much better. So, yeah, I get your point. And the fact between Wheeler and Heel, I'm saying I like Heel more, but he's got a lower top 2 pitcher percentage and slightly higher ownership. So I totally get where you're coming from.
I wonder if Garcia is 100% healthy right now either.
Same.
That was scratched on Sunday, missed 2 games, returned. He's back in the lineup today, but he's dealing with a forearm injury. It does make you wonder. I don't know. All right, let me see. My pitcher exposures right now. Yep. Okay, so Wheeler is actually my highest. I once I saw that leverage, and it's not a lot of leverage, but once I saw the leverage on Wheeler, it definitely tipped me off that would probably be getting a lot of him. Lewis Heel, not getting a lot of Paul Skeens or Castillo right now. But, you can make ROI boost. You can set exposure caps and all of that stuff. You can play it however you want in the Sims. Some of the cheap guys, though, Matt, this is one of these days where you look at some of these cheap options. Joey Estes is 6,500 against Colorado. Ryan Feltner on the other side of this game feels like deja vu from yesterday, honestly, where we had that Oakland, or was it when was that? A couple days ago?
Both days. Both.
Right?
We had Brooks versus Quantrill, and then yesterday we had Spence versus Gomber. Spence was the most popular pitcher on the slate. We didn't talk about that because we did early live before lock yesterday.
Okay, so it was the day before that we talked about that because it was I believe that was, exactly. Okay, so these guys, you're going to have some ownership going there. Quantrill was fantastic 2 days ago when we discussed it. And then, it was Brooks, who was fine. I mean, nothing fantastic at all. But are we once again looking at this as another scenario where it's like you have to get to some Joey Estes and Feltner because both of them are pulling ownership?
So the thing is, and why it makes it hard not to at least look at them, especially if you're going overweight on Wheeler, who's expensive. That's the other thing about Wheeler. He's 11K. We haven't had too many 11K pitchers this year, and there are expensive bats to roster. So unless you want to roster a cheap stack, you have to spend down at your SP2, and those guys are viable in the same way Brooks and Quantrill were.
Yeah. Eric said, Wheels has always been more of a guy who gets weak ground balls, not someone who racks up double-digit Ks. I mean, maybe not. He has a 29% K rate, though. That's an elite strikeout rate.
He's the best pitcher in baseball right now. So whatever he does, it's working.
I do actually perception. Perception isn't always reality. It does feel like sometimes Wheeler doesn't get insane strikeout numbers, but you can also, if I told you that Wheeler went 7 one-run innings and gave you 7 strikeouts, I think you'd be fine with that. But he has double-digit strikeouts in 3 of 10 starts this year. He has 5 of 10 with 8+ strikeouts, and he can just pitch ridiculously deep into games, limit base runners. There's a lot to be said about that for sure. We don't need to belabor the point. What I do want to talk about though is you've got 6 guys pulling 23+%. It's Heel, Wheeler, Feltner, Skeens, Castillo, and Estes. Then Waldron, Heaney, Brown, Montas, Smith-Shawver, and Mason Black are all getting nothing. Is there an argument to be made for any of these guys? I can't see it. I love trying to find those really low owned guys on small slates. Like yesterday, Jake Irvin. I don't remember exactly what he finished with, but he wasn't bad at all.
To your point, I don't know if you talked to him at all, but Mike Lawrence listened to us. He played the 121, didn't play Schoolbowl because of everything that the Sims were showing and we talked about. I don't know who he played with Reagan's, but ended up taking it down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How about that?
I know.
That's awesome. Well, dude, the Sims yesterday were so on point. We're like, all right, we're not getting any Reagan Scooble, and we're getting way more Reagans than Scooble with cheap arms. And he had Irvin in that lineup with Reagans?
I'm not sure who his second pitcher was. I don't even know if he told me.
Point being, usually I feel like there's at least one or two low-owned guys that we can make the pivot to, especially when there's high-owned cheap options, like a Feltner and a Joey Estes. I'm having a really tough time finding that today. The one guy that I think you could potentially make an argument for, and not because I think he's particularly good, but Waldron. Like I am now. It's at Great American Ballpark. Clearly a favorable park for hitters, no doubt about it. And the warmer it gets, the more more likely it becomes that bats really wake up. I don't know what the rain's going to look like here, right? But here's what I can say. This is a Reds lineup right now, Matt, that can provide huge games for opposing pitchers on strikeouts alone. They strike out a lot, and it's really all I care about. Like if I'm dealing with a not good pitcher that's getting not a lot of ownership while a bunch of other not great pitchers are getting a lot of ownership, all I really care about here is what do their strikeouts look like? And this is a Cincy team that will strike out a lot. Also, Waldron has, as far as strikeout upside goes for cheap options, it's not that bad. Like he's coming off a 10K game against Atlanta, 6Ks before that against the Dodgers. You could actually do worse than Matt Waldron at 6,200. I'll go on the record saying I don't see why he's sub 10% and those other guys are hovering close to 25, 30.
Yeah, I got no disagreements with you. I don't think Estes or Felton are particularly good. Give me the ownership discount. And he's not cheaper than Feltner, but he's cheaper than Estes. So I got no arguments with that. He wasn't really standing out to me, but points well taken.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. What about Estes and Feltner stand out more? Obviously, like
the ballpark and matchup. I mean, that's all it is.
Right. But what about, and I could just be way off base here, but like, what about when you start factoring in ownership?
Yeah, that's where I think it comes into play. Like, if all these guys were the same owned, I do think Waldron would be the third because of the matchup and ballpark, but I don't think it's like that distant of a third, and ownership matters. So I think he's right there with those guys when you start to consider ownership.
Maybe I'm just nuts. Like I'm looking over this. Since Cincinnati has the second highest K rate in the league versus righties, only Seattle is higher. They're at 27.2%. Cincinnati, right? They have a 77 WRC plus against right-handed pitching on the season. Matt, do you know where that ranks?
No, tell me.
Take a guess.
26th.
Dead last, tied with the White Sox. Dead last, 277 WOBA versus righty. So, like, yes, the park is better. Is the matchup that much better?
Yeah, to your point, we were in this spot last week talking about an under-owned Brandon Pfaadt against the Reds, and he carved.
I know. The Reds have been legitimately bad.
Yeah. Their lineup, what was expected to be really good coming into the year, is really decimated, from Matt McClain to Jake Fraley. They're dealing with injuries all over and running out pretty piss poor lineup every night. So yeah, I get it. If I am going cheap, maybe Waldron's the better play.
Oh, I'm looking at chat too. We got a few guys in chat saying Waldron. Yeah, he's not that good, but neither is Feltner or Estes. Anyway, you guys make the call. What do you think? But I would like to get some exposure and have it at least somewhat balanced out there. Especially knowing that he actually has had decent strikeout stuff. Matt, talk to me about anybody else you're looking at pitching, or dig deeper into anyone else. Then we can get to some bats here.
You could also make the case, like the real case, he's the best pitcher of the three. Like, I don't think any of them are particularly good, but if you told me Waldron was the best, I wouldn't argue with you. So there's that.
He has he has a 23% K rate. It's not bad at all. Like his strikeout stuff hasn't been bad. You know what I mean? It's not like you're getting a lot of swinging strikes out of Matt Waldron, but I don't know, man. I told you I'm always trying to pull like one low owned cheap guy to pivot off, and it's not that I'm always going to do it, but for the sake of the show, we always want to be able to, zoom out, right, and be able to look at this instead of just being like, well, fuck all these guys, fade them all because they're not getting ownership. That would defeat the entire purpose. But I tell you, I'd rather go to Waldron for sure over Heaney, Brown, Montas, Smith, Shawver, Mason Black. I like him over Joey Estes too. So
this Cincy lineup sucks today. Like, it sucks. Mike Ford hitting cleanup, Luke Malian instead of Tyler Stevenson, Nick Martini in the 6 hole, this Jacob Herb Tubisi or whatever, who sucks leading off. Like, yeah, man, I'm with you. Like, especially because he's not getting ownership. So I think it's a perfectly reasonable play, maybe even a good play.
Any other spots worth getting to?
I think Waldron's the spot. We're dealing with limited options anyways. So, like, I don't think you need to go off the reservation too much. I think you've sold me on Waldron as being the guy. Like, both pitchers in the Atlanta Cubs game are coming in with leverage, but I don't really see it. Like, we don't know. Like, Smith Shawver has not been good in the minors this year. We don't know how long Brown's leash is. The wind's blowing in today, so there's that. But I like the Waldron call way more than those guys who are 1,000 more.
Well, this can't end well, can it?
I'd still rather not play him and spend up, but again, there are expensive bats to pay up for today, so we'll see how that goes.
For sure. And by the way, for what it's worth, I'm getting a decent amount of Waldron in the Sims. I was getting 20% right now. I'm okay with that. And you guys ever want to check the Sims out? All of our tools, links in the description and in the chat. If you click on more in the description, or if you're on your phone, you'll see it, like Sims Max, Sims Data, and MLB Data and Sims. That's like everything. Lineup generator. If you're looking to get in at an entry level, just build better lineups and have the ability to make adjustments on your own, upload stuff to CSV and, see all of your exposures in your stacks without paying a premium. Go for it. We got you covered across the board. But I will say, the Sims yesterday was just absolutely spot on with the builds that we were getting, right? Kind of across the board, where a lot of people were going to look to jam guys like Reagan's and Scuba. We weren't getting any of that. And that's what I absolutely love about this tool, Matt, is I can run it and I know that it's simulating, what resembles what's going to look like the field tens of thousands of times. And it's giving you the lineups that in those simulations won, right? Like won it the most, or cashed the most, or were the most profitable, had the highest simmed ROI. And that's what, pros have been doing this for many years, which is why they weren't happy when we released this tool. But the type of difference it makes is massive, not just for MLB, but NBA, NFL, all of the other sports. And you see it in the results. And it is forced me to stop being so like emotional with the way that lineups are built. I think a lot, like Jake, I know, says in chat all the time, and he's taken down like 25,000 in the past 2 weeks using the Sims. Like I believe it was Jake that said once he stopped tinkering with everything and like letting his head control it, everything started to change. And for sure, it's a bit of a learning curve in that respect to kind of train yourself otherwise. But yeah, check it out. Link in the description. I tell you, want to try it for a week, go for it. A month, go for it. We'd love to have you. And jump in our Discord, say what's up. We're happy to answer any questions you have, or beforehand, hit us up on Twitter, anywhere. We'll help you out for sure. Want to talk some bats here. So Are there any stacks you're just, let's do this. Let's wipe these clear. Are there any stacks you're just not interested in?
Yeah, Texas, I think you can cross off without Seager in there. We saw Miami get to Wheeler and it's baseball, so that's why I hesitate to say anyone here, but I would really, really struggle to get to Texas here in basically any sort of set of lineups.
Yeah, I think Texas is pretty tough to get to. Would you go to Seattle?
I'm a little bit partial and I'm still scared to play heel because I haven't been riding this right-hander against Seattle thing as you have. I play much more Seattle than the field does. They do seem like they're getting going a little bit, and heel is not as good of a pitcher in my eyes as Wheeler or Castillo. His strikeout upside is right there with those guys.
No, I agree. But he's not as polished, not even close
right.
as yeah.
We saw it in the first inning against the White Sox last start. So I'd rather play Seattle than like Texas, etc. I look at Seattle and San Francisco pretty similar. The other thing about Seattle, and this probably means nothing, but just like I can't get it out of my head. This is a 9:35 local start for Seattle, 12:35 Eastern. That just has to be brutal. You don't think? Yeah, I know. They were in Baltimore and now they're in New York. So maybe it's not even a thing. I'm glad you said that because I was even thinking about that too much. So
I think they're probably adjusted to it, right? Like they've been on the East Coast a little while now. I think they're probably fine.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Heel ends up being the highest owned pitcher on the slate because we've seen it a bunch with these pitchers against Seattle, and Heel's been popular a lot recently. So I think their upside is higher than teams like Texas, but it does look like ownership is already there. So not too enticed by it.
Yeah, if I were to choose, all right, how about this? You have to pick one team to stack against one of these top end pitchers. Who is it?
So not one of the highest owned, so like not Estes or Feltner, right?
No,
one of the top four. Okay.
Like San Fran against Skeens, Yankees against Castillo. Yeah, any of those four.
I think my answer has got to be San Fran versus Skeens. Now,
really,
again,
okay.
I'm not saying that as like I like them, but there's just so much more unknown with Skeens than these other guys. I think Seattle and San Fran look similar to me, but Skeens doesn't have as long a leash as Heel right now. Skeens was good, but not amazing in that first start against the Cubs. And then, as I mentioned, like the report card came out, the ump report card came out. He got the benefit of more balls called strikes than any pitcher in the league so far this year. So again, I'm just picking holes. I think he's awesome, but I also think his ownership is inflated because it's Paul Skeens, and there's a lot of unknown here. Like, he's an amazing prospect. He lit up the minor leagues. He was phenomenal at LSU. He's dating Livy Dunn. Like, I know all this, but this is still his only third game against major league hitters, and major league hitters are a different breed. So that's my case for them.
Yeah.
It might be a weak case. It might be a weak case, but there's a case.
I get it. Hold on a second. Someone said Mason Black isn't pitching today, bro. Who is it?
Yes, he is. He's just not come. They're using an opener.
He's the long guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that okay? That's what I thought. Yeah, officer in Scotty Scheffler arrest failed to turn on body cam. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Didn't that come out like last week?
Yeah, now there's reports coming out that
okay.
I think there's more reports coming out on it. That should be fun.
I mean, this is a whole different conversation, but that incident is like a microcosm of why people hate the cops in our country.
I'm not getting into that because I don't have a firm belief in one direction or the other. I look at every case. I truly look at every case individually. But in this case, like I was just, opposed to the notion that this guy was intentionally trying to evade a police officer on his way to play the PGA Championship. Like I just try and use I just try and use reasoning and logic for these type of things and take it by a case by case basis. You know what I mean? And Occam's razor would suggest that he didn't look out of the side view and go, let me take this guy for a ride. So yeah, call me crazy. Anyway, top stacks. So our tools really like San Diego today. Really like San Diego against Frankie Montas. Good park. For sure. I can only say so much about that because I was just saying how I still like Waldron. I think Cincinnati's very viable today too, for what it's worth. But they're actually looking to be a pretty popular stack. Like the Reds are the second highest owned stack behind the Phillies right now.
So here's the thing with Waldron. I didn't touch on this when we were talking about him before. Because he's a knuckleballer, I almost feel like the matchup doesn't matter as much for him as it does other guys. And there are other pitchers in the league like this, like Blake Snell, for instance. Like when he's got his stuff, his best stuff, you're not going to have much of a chance to hit him. As we saw Waldron last time out against Atlanta. But if he doesn't, he's capable of getting hit hard by anyone, as evidenced by, who was it? The Diamondbacks destroyed Waldron a couple days ago, or a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, I don't really love the Reds here because they're getting ownership and their lineup sucks. But if you get the bad Waldron, they obviously have the upside to be the top stack on the board. I have no arguments for that at all.
Yeah. It's just the chalky Reds team is always sometimes like a chalky bad team stack is just as bad as a chalky bad pitcher. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
The only difference is like those stacks have, there's variables. The stacks can look different, right? It's not just one entity. It's like where you have just one pitcher. But yeah, sometimes that can look pretty bad. What's interesting to me, this is where I think it gets more fun, is like, what do you do with Oakland and Colorado? Because listen, Matt, I can tell you, and you guys in chat, you already know this. You're smart enough people. Like, yes, the Phillies against Andrew Heaney at Citizens Bank Park are pretty strong plays today, where you're getting 70-degree temperatures at Citizens Bank Park after the rain too. Some nice humidity for sure. That's easy enough. I don't think we're telling anybody anything they don't already know. San Diego against Montas in that park, they look really good. They have the highest top stack probability on the slate, the second highest stack score of any team. What about some of these teams going up against the high owned, but not elite pitchers? That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, I like both Oakland and Colorado. This ballpark plays much more hitter friendly during the day. Obviously, when the sun's out. We've seen Oakland go off a couple times during the day this season. Colorado, not so much, but they're facing a chalky Estes. The tools like them. I have interest in both these stacks. I think we could see a 8 to 9 game here. Certainly, these offenses aren't very good, so we could always see a 3 to 2 game. But two bad pitchers that are getting ownership, yeah, I'm about it.
What other spots do you want to talk about? You want to dig into here?
I think we got to talk about Pittsburgh because they do look really, really good. Mason Black stinks. Maybe it helps him out that he's coming in after an opener, but Pittsburgh's cheap with upside. The problem is they're so high owned, like all things considered. They just shouldn't be the highest owned stack on the board, and they are because of their price tags. It's easy to spend up at two pitchers and play Pittsburgh.
Einsteinium asked, and Matt, I can throw this to you. Can anyone explain why Pitt is so high owned in a bullpen game?
Yeah, first off, it's not a bullpen game. They're just using an opener, and then Mason Black is coming in after that. So Mason Black is going to be the main pitcher for them. Of course, if he's pitching like shit, they'll take him out, but it's not a bullpen game in the true regard of what that means.
Right. He's stretched out.
Yeah, he's been starting. This is the first time he's coming out because he hasn't been good, so they're trying something new. He's not good. Pittsburgh is cheap, and they're expensive pitchers to use on this slate. That's really all it is.
Yeah. Yep. All right. I get it. But I will say, I don't love that Pittsburgh stack.
How could you at such high ownership? I mean, I
Shit
came
park,
into
too.
this. Yeah, not a good park. Like I came into this thinking, yeah, Pittsburgh looks really good. Like before the tools came out, Mason Black's not good. They're cheap where you can roster 2 expensive pitchers. But the field is just already there. So it's hard to get behind teams like that, teams like Pittsburgh, when they're already getting ownership. Like that's the appealing part of Colorado and even Oakland. Like, even though Oakland's projected for, 7.5% ownership, like it's still a lot less than Pittsburgh.
So I'm getting 14% Pittsburgh stacks. I'm getting a lot of San Diego. Right now I have 25% San Diego stacks, 5-man stacks. About, if you're including 3 and 4-man stacks, I'm getting around 20% Philly. In total, I'm getting about 20% Atlanta too. And by the way, it's not going to equal 100 because I'm factoring in 3, 4, and 5-man stacks, right? So a lot of these are going to be both teams stacked in the same lineup. And then a little bit of the Cubs, a little bit of Oakland, Colorado. I'm getting virtually none of, New York, Seattle, Cincinnati, San Francisco, maybe like 5% Colorado and Oakland, Matt. But much of mine is concentrated at the top with like San Diego, a lot of Philly, and a good amount of Pittsburgh, but nothing that's going to ruin my day if they suck.
Yeah, for sure. Not surprising. The bottom stacks, kind of like the bottom pitchers, don't look overly appealing. And because there's so many bad pitch, like because half the slate is either a really good pitcher or a pitcher getting ownership, or they're not a good pitcher, it's kind of the inverse with stacks. So not surprising in the least at all that that's how it's coming up.
What, Sean, by the way, dude, how do you know where all these people are from? I want an honest answer in chat, please. I think everyone's curious. Are you following these people like throughout high school, or are you going through each slate and like pulling up? Do you have a spreadsheet that just has hometowns for everybody? I'm very curious. I need to know this. Like, where, like, are you taking the time each day to search hometowns for all of these guys? Because you are the homecoming narrative king. I will give you that. I just want to know where this information comes from.
Who is it?
Mason Black?
He's from Pittsburgh.
No, he's from Scranton.
Okay, so basically, I mean, he's from PA. That's funny.
But
like, how the hell do you know that?
But not really. But not really. If I were a professional athlete playing in Pittsburgh, okay, and like I'm playing a game at PNC Park, and I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, in no way would I consider that even remotely close to a homecoming, just because it's the same state.
No way. No chance. It's like a 5-hour drive.
Yeah, Scranton to Pitt, and I'm not saying Scranton's Philly, but Scranton is, yeah, like a 5-hour drive to Pittsburgh. Isn't it? It's pretty far.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I was going to say it's like 4 to 5 hours.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And
like, would you view playing in LA as a homecoming if you're from Oakland?
That's literally the same distance as Cleveland and Cincy. I don't claim Cincy. Why would I?
No. Mason Black's gonna have Mason Black's gonna have like a 12 strikeout game, and afterwards, then they interview him. He's just gonna. All I could say is, I'm happy to be home, something like that. Anyway, yeah, I don't. Oh, one game I wanted to talk to you about. We didn't really like. I think we've hit on a bunch of this, and I think we've covered pretty much all of our bases, so to speak. What about this matchup between Ben Brown and Smith Shawver at Wrigley Field? There's no wind blowing out or anything like that, but
wind blowing in.
Right, wind's blowing in. Still a 9-run total though. No real clear favorite in this game. I think the Cubs are like -115 on the money line. Is there anything there that we're missing?
No, I think Atlanta looks good here. Again, no big weather, but they got going last night, so I think they look good. I also think the Cubs look good. Basically the same top stack percentage as Pittsburgh, but way less ownership. Their lineup isn't out yet, I don't think. So, yeah, I could make cases for both those teams, and we have them both projected to be under-owned right now. So, only makes me like them more there. And just to note, the Philly Texas game is starting delayed. So, for anyone out there wondering,
which is good, by the way. That's what we want. Well, you don't want to delay. I'm saying it's good that if they're going to delay, that means that we should be good to go. You know, should be good. Hold on. Let me read some of these comments. Benny said, never been to Scranton, but on name alone, it can't be wonderful. Well, you guys should know which famous show was set in Scranton, PA, Matt.
I knew of Scranton from somewhere, but give me a hint.
Jacob, are you here? I bet Jacob can answer this question. He better be able to answer this question.
I know this too. Oh,
what?
Yeah, The Office.
The Office. Not, it wasn't actually filmed in Scranton, but that is where that was the set. See, chat's coming in hot. Chat knew.
I'm not a huge Office fan. I know it's a hot take. I'm not a huge Office.
It's a great show. I mean, it got shitty when Michael left, but it's a good show.
Yeah, funny show. I'm not going to shit on it. Just was never my personal cup of tea.
My wife and I love that show. There's an episode where like Dwight does the fire drill. It's one of the greatest things ever. I would suggest
the one where they're on the bus doing the cheers. I've seen clips. It's funny.
They're all good.
It's funny. It's funny.
Matty, I said Office 2. Yeah. So here's the thing. If they bring The Office back and they don't treat it like pussies and they actually make it good again, The Office was good because in today's world, you couldn't even do that anymore. If you're going to bring it back, you better make it in the same vein as the first Office. And by first Office, I mean the American version of The Office.
Yeah, no,
you can't bring it back and put, the governor on. Doesn't work. Bug Boy says low level humor. Oh, sorry, it's not highbrow enough for you, brother. Sorry. Anyway, top 3 pitchers, top 3 stacks before we get out of here. Appreciate you guys hanging as always. By the way, hit that thumbs up and don't forget, if you're not on Sleeper yet, $500 first match deposit bonus, dynamic pricing up to 100 extra entries. It's one of the only spots where you can do home runs in your entries, where you can do doubles, stolen bases, triples, instead of just like the standard juice lines. Mix sports up, play it however you want. Free squares if you're a new user, there's a free square today. If you do it tomorrow, there's a free square tomorrow. And the best deposit bonus out there, instant match up to $500. If you only have 50, you got 100 now. If you have 500, now you have 1,000. If you have 20, it's 40. Simple as that. Check it out. Link in the description and in chat. Give me your top 3 pitchers for today.
Got to be Gio, Castillo, Wheeler. I know that's not any surprises, but no Skeens and none of the cheap guys for me.
Okay. I'll throw Waldron in there just because, you guys make your own decisions, right? But I think this has worked for us lately where sometimes you just get these cheap guys that are overlooked. It's more so for me that Feltner and Estes don't jump off the page to me as just great plays. I think Feltner is fine, a good spot, but he's 30% owned. Estes is 23%. Waldron's 9%. I'm okay with that. As far as stacks go, it's got to be. I'm going to roll with the Sims on this one. San Diego. I am getting a decent amount of Pittsburgh. So as much as I'm not in love with it, like I said, I won't let my head dictate this one. Pittsburgh and Philly against Andrew Heaney. How about you?
Oh, this is tough. I'm going to go with the Padres for sure. They're number 1 on the board. I'm I'm going to go with the Cubs, number 2. Smith-Shawver stinks, and they're not getting love. And then I'm going to go with the Rockies.
Okay.
A lot of these teams look very similar as per our tools.
Yes, they do. Very much so. Anyway, guys, good luck. We don't have, I think there's only 2 night games tonight. So I don't think we're going to have but we got NBA Live Before Lock 7:30 with Greg and Eric. They'll be on playback after that at 8 p.m. So be sure to hang out, have a good time, enjoy this basketball game. Look, game 1 went to overtime. That was Pacers probably should have won that. Dallas got the road win in game 1 yesterday. Going to be maybe a more enjoyable series in the Eastern Conference than I expected. So come hang out, watch it, get in some showdown action. Good luck today on this early, main slate. Matt and I will see you back here tomorrow on the MLB Strategy Show. Peace.